Yeah, and I did a lot of live streams. The live streams were able to kind of keep me going, fortunately.
Hmm.
Um, I'm very thankful to my kind of audience that they were willing to do the live stream thing.
Hi, Lissie. How are
Hi,
you?
good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. We spoke before the pandemic at in Los Angeles. Actually, my wife and I interviewed you. You did this cool showcase, and we were like up on the top of this hotel.
Oh
And you
yeah,
remember
I remember.
that?
Yeah, it was just me and Joe, my piano player. We were like in a penthouse in Hollywood.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah, that was such a cool. It was a rad show and a cool experience.
Yeah, nice to see you again.
Yes, that was very fun. I just watching the interview from before. It was such a cool shot. Like you're there, in front of the window, and you can just see downtown LA. It was just a cool, and it was a great
Yeah,
conversation too.
yeah, and I'm like, I don't know how we found that place, but it was a really fun night.
Yeah, very cool. And you had just put out the When I'm Alone record.
Yeah, the piano retrospective, the
Yes.
just piano vocal like versions of my songs. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and that's crazy. I mean, that was like 4 years ago now. So
I know. It feels like it was like
or three
literally
years ago,
yesterday. Yeah,
but
I know. I know.
yeah,
It's so wild to think that because that was maybe May, or April or
that
May of
yeah,
2019.
May 2019. Yeah, so I guess 3 years, but still, I
But
mean, it's
still, it
like
doesn't feel like it was that long.
I know. Well, then the pandemic happened, obviously, so that kind of has screwed up time a little bit as well. So
Of course, of course. Well, I'd love to. I'm Adam, by the way.
yep, hi
And
Adam.
I would love to kind of touch a little bit on what we discussed before. This is a podcast about you and your music journey, and then obviously
Hmm.
kind of pick up where your piano retrospective kind of, from there forward to this new record that you have coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, I'm just gonna pour myself some coffee. I don't, is the video component of this like accessible to people or more just the audio part?
We do both, if that's cool.
Yeah, no, totally cool. Sorry, I don't don't look better. I
You look great. What are you talking
I
about?
just threw I just threw a headband on. I'm like, I've been really sleeping in.
That's good.
Anyhow, but yeah, no, I got my coffee and here we go. All right.
All right, awesome. Are you still in Iowa?
I am, yeah. It's
Very cool.
beautiful day.
I did. I remember you talking about moving there and buying like a 50-acre farm.
Yeah, it's 45 now. I kind of did some
Some
swapping.
scaling back.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a lot. It's like there's a pond on the property and there's a lot of trees. And so I'm doing a lot of like timber management and trying
Oh,
to figure out how to
wow.
get the algae out of the pond and all the things. And my
All the
garden
things.
is popping off right now. So
Amazing. Are you growing the stuff for the popcorn company that you have as well there?
oh,
I did see that, which is so cool.
yeah. No, I'm not. I think that would be a potential dream down the road, especially just to have a sunflower oil
Uh-huh.
operation. But I have enough to focus on with my music
Of course.
and life. But no, that's been discussed. I mean, in a perfect world, yes, I would grow all of the ingredients and the popcorn and the oil and so forth, but not yet.
Not yet, not
Yeah.
yet. Do anything on, I mean, as far as farming goes on your
I,
farmland?
I used to rent out the acres for corn and soy, and then I changed that and just did hay,
Hmm.
rented it out for
Okay.
hay. But in the last year or two, I'm trying to put all my tillable land just into prairie,
Oh,
which is,
cool.
kind of trying to create like a pollinator experience slash, just kind of take it out of production and let it just be.
Uh-huh.
But I do have a little garden, and so yesterday I pulled beets out of the garden and
Oh,
carrots and cauliflower and broccoli, and then it's like I'm so exhausted from doing all the farming gardening that I just want to order a pizza. I don't even feel like cooking, so I got to figure out what to do with all this cauliflower and beets. But
make cauliflower crust for your pizza.
I know I was wondering. I know people like rice their cauliflower and use it
Oh
as
yeah.
flour, but I think I'm gonna freeze it for soup, and I think the beets I'm gonna make hummus out of.
Oh, yum. There you
And the
go.
carrots I can put in my smoothie. So,
Amazing. Well, I recently moved to Nashville, just outside of
oh,
Nashville,
okay. So
south of
you were
Nashville.
in LA though. So you were living in LA.
I was in San Diego, and we drove up to
Okay.
LA. I mean, obviously it's not very far, so we drove up
Yep.
to see you and hang for that show. But it's such a different world. Just hearing you talk about hay, farming hay and stuff. Like, I'd never experienced anything like that. I grew up in San Diego, born and raised there. I spent a little bit of time in San Francisco and in Los Angeles, but coming here and just seeing the greenery and the farms and the cows, it's such a different world, and I love it here.
Yeah. And you get to experience humidity now. How
Oh
do you feel
yeah.
about humidity?
Actually kind of like it. I don't mind it
Yeah.
whatsoever. I mean, if you're going to be outside sweating anyway, I'd rather get to it quicker.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's something really, because I grew up in the Midwest, but then I lived out in
Mhm.
Southern California forever,
Mhm.
about like a balmy summer's evening with like a little bit of humidity, like stepping out on the porch, just the way like the air kind of just wraps around you
Yeah.
that I love. So, wow, oh, that's awesome. Well, I hope you're enjoying Nashville.
I do. I love it here. And for me, it's like, I remember my family is originally from Cleveland, Ohio. I was born and raised in San Diego. My mom was like 8 months pregnant with me when she moved, or when my parents moved. Living here reminds me of going back to staying with my grandfather in the Cleveland area, just like
Yeah.
during the summer, just like that humidity and like the smell in the air and the fireflies. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. All good. Well, I'm happy. I love it too. And it was nice when I moved back to kind of those things that I enjoyed visiting and getting to experience, like you say, like the fireflies and like kind of the warm, humid nights and
Hmm.
seeing all the greenery and the rain and so forth. So
Sure. And
awesome.
you grew up in oh, you grew up in Illinois, right? Not near where you are now.
So I grew up in Rock Island, Illinois, which is right on the Mississippi River, across from Iowa. It's part of this area called the Quad Cities, although there's
Okay.
5 Quad Cities, which is kind of weird. Rock Island, Moline, Bettendorf, Davenport, East Moline apparently is one of the Quad Cities. But yeah, so it's like an Iowa, Illinois area. So I kind of grew up in Iowa, but technically I grew up on the Illinois side of the river.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so I grew up there, but I could not wait to get out of there. I was felt like I just was always attracted like unwanted negative attention to myself. I got kicked out of high school and I
I
don't know,
remember
I
you
just
mentioning that last time. You didn't get too far into detail about it. You just talked a little bit about a choir teacher or something like that.
yeah, I mean, it was a long time ago, and I'm sure that I played some part in it. But like when you have kind of just a traditional place, and I think things are changing so much now in the world, and it's chaotic, but I think it's going to change for the better. But like if you don't fit into like a very specific like pre-approved box, it's sort of
Mm.
like you end up creating problems for yourself, and I had some like authority figures sort of who were gunning for me all throughout my high school career. So, and eventually I got kicked out and I got arrested. And
Oh
anyhow, without
my.
even going into all of that, I felt very strongly like I wanted to get the heck out of there, like ASAP.
Oh yeah, of
Um,
course.
but
Jeez.
weirdly, it's like, the more time I spent away, the more I really wanted to return to the Midwest, not necessarily to the town I'm from, although my family's all there. I'm close enough to visit. But no, there's this just beautiful part of Iowa, Northeast Iowa, where there's a lot of rolling hills
Hmm.
and little streams and rivers and things. It's beautiful up here. So I'm still close enough, but not really where I grew up.
Gotcha. I know you mentioned before that you come from a fairly musical household, right? Your brother plays piano, and your grandfather was like in a barbershop quartet or something like that.
Yeah, so my grandpa was a barbershop quartet international champion. I like maybe in the 50s, I don't know what year, but he did a lot of like musicals and things. And then so I think just all of us sort of could carry a tune. Like I'm the only
Hmm.
one that really pursued it as a kid. My sister um did like shows and stuff. Like we took lessons and would put on these shows. And my sister was always like, she was a better singer than I was, I mean, but no one else wanted to do it for reals like me. But
Hmm.
like my mom has a nice voice, my dad has a nice voice. My brother Zach hadn't played piano in years, like took it as a kid, but like, is super smart, was able to just hop back in and like read music and could play the piano. Yeah. So
That's wild.
my brothers can sing and play the piano, but they don't do it. They're out of practice.
God, it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a more of a hobby, fun thing.
I don't
If
even think it's
time
a
will
hobby
tell. Oh,
anymore.
not
Yeah,
even
I
like
think briefly my brother revived it for something for his kids' school, like the dad
okay.
band.
Oh,
But no, I
rad.
mean they don't even keep up on it at all. Like don't have the same desire that I guess I had to really pursue and actively be singing and playing music. But yeah,
Mhm.
we all kind of have like I think some just natural musical ability.
Was it pretty apparent to maybe your parents or your siblings that you really wanted to do this more so than they did? Like growing up, I mean, being young, you talked about. I remember last time that you were in Annie and you're doing stuff like super young, like 5 years old. But having your siblings around you that are also were doing a similar thing, did your family kind of know like, oh no, Lissy like really is going to do this? Like,
I think so. And my brothers are a lot older than me. They're like 12 and 9 years older than me. So
oh, okay,
they were kind of already like off
out
to
of the
college
house.
by the time I was, doing my shows and I was a nanny when I was 9. Like they were off at college. But my sister,
Okay.
she just like, she just kind of, she liked to play basketball and
Uh-huh.
anyhow, but no, I think my mom knew, my mom has this thing that she'll say, like this story she repeats a little, like when I was in a Christmas show when I was like 5 and then my little, you know, polka dotted like leotard and my
Sure.
hair was like done. And she said my eyes just sparkled. Like I just like shone like a light from inside out. And of course she's going to say that because she's my mom. But she said in a way that she didn't really pick up on from anyone else. It's like, it was like where I felt seen or something,
Yeah.
and I think being the youngest of 4 and I'm sure in some roundabout way, like, singing and writing and telling my story through music and getting people to like pay attention to me, I'm sure is probably part of being like the youngest child. So I think I found music was like a way to feel seen and heard and understood. And
Okay.
my mom was so supportive for all of us, whatever it was we were passionate about, she made sure we had access to it. So yeah, I think my parents saw from like a young age that that was just where I felt good was
Comfortable. Yeah.
on stage singing my heart out. Yep.
Sure. Okay. Well, when did you started writing songs in high school and playing guitar in high school? Is that what you said?
Yeah, well, I started like making up songs when I was like little, like just singing randomly, like was always
Oh,
sort
just
of
like coming
making
up
up
little
songs.
melodies and stuff. Okay.
Yeah, like my nieces do that. Actually, they write really good songs and they're teeny. But
That's
yeah, when
cool.
you're little, you're just singing life, you're just making up songs. But in high school, I really started trying to, practice and teach myself guitar. And that was the point where I was able to start, I'd always kind of written. So it was like starting to try to put lyrics and music to my guitar. And yeah, I just kind of started writing songs. I worked at a coffee shop that had an open mic night. So
In
that
high
was like
school?
yeah,
Oh,
yep.
cool.
Theo's Java Club. I worked there and they had like a really I don't feel like they might be closing now, which is a bummer, but they have this really great like side room with like a stage. And so they had an open mic. So when I was in high school, it was like that was sort of gave me a goal. Like, okay, I
Hmm.
have to practice for the open mic night.
What was
So
it
yeah.
like getting up there, like playing? I mean, I know you do a lot of covers, even to this day, like amazing covers. Like the Danzig cover you do is still my favorite one.
Oh, thank you.
But having, doing those, like, did it start with covers? I mean, especially at the open mic night, because usually you can only get up and play what, like one or two songs,
I'm trying to
or maybe
remember, but
different
I feel
for.
like I got like a decent size slot. It wasn't like that wildly popular, like if you were in LA or something,
Okay.
there was plenty of space and time to get up at Theo's. But no, I mean, I did sort of learn to play through learning other people's songs, like Jewel or
Hmm.
Sarah McLachlan, or I can't even remember now, like House of the Rising Sun. That was one of my first songs I learned to play. Got
Okay.
some great chords in that song, all the big kind of beginner important chords.
Hmm.
Um, but no, I mean, pretty quickly once I started actually doing the open mic, I was like playing my own compositions, which probably weren't all that great, and I don't remember them. And They might be in a notebook somewhere.
But still to have the courage to do that, to get up there and present your own material.
Yeah, it's weird. I have all kinds of ways that I feel awkward in life, but getting up and singing for people has never been one of them. I know it'd be some people's like worst nightmare, but like getting up and talking even is like more nerve-wracking, but like getting up and singing and sharing that has never made me nervous, really.
Even your own like lyrics and own emotions of nothing like
Yeah.
that. Oh,
I don't know
interesting. I mean,
why.
that's cool. That's
Yeah.
great, right?
I mean, there's been times where like I've been on some like show or something like where like there's a lot of people watching where I maybe would get nervous, but in general, like even back then, it's like there were tons of things that made me feel mortified or but getting up and singing my songs like never did. So
That's
I don't
cool. I
know
mean, yeah,
why.
a lot of people would be the other way. Like as far as like being that vulnerable, like presenting a song that they wrote, or like, oh my gosh, I don't want anyone to hear these lyrics that I wrote down, or is it gonna be bad? Or
Yeah, and I think probably, I probably even as I'm older, I'm more self-conscious about sharing my soul because of like social media and stuff too. Maybe I don't
Mhm.
know, but at that age, I was like just so fearless. I'm in awe of my younger self. I didn't have very much self awareness either. It's like it probably could have been terrible, but I thought I was like doing great. So I
Well,
don't
obviously you
know.
have talent and you're doing great, and now you're doing very well. So there was something there, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, there was something there for sure. And I did and then I went on to college and I played a lot of open mics and opened for people. And, you know, I, I wasn't like delusional because I was consistently getting feedback from people like that there was something there. There was
Right.
something budding and evolving. And so I was able to sort of get a lot of good feedback and advice that sort of just kept me going.
What was the first like validated thing that happened? Like, I mean, you said you went to college, so you moved away, correct, from Illinois to go to college?
Yeah, so I did 2 years of college at Colorado State
Okay.
before, and then I did a semester in Paris, a semester abroad, and then I decided to quit school and move to LA, as you
Okay.
do when you're trying
Sure.
to make it in the biz. Yeah, but yeah, well, once I got to college and I was doing there's Woody's Pizza, which had amazing pizza. I wonder if it's still there. They had an open mic on Wednesdays. And
Hmm.
then it was like kind of through just doing like all the open mics, like I ended up getting sort of in the mix over at the Aggie and the Starlights, which I don't know if it's there. These two venues that would bring in like nationally touring
Hmm.
bands, so they had some like well, so actually now I'm like, as I'm remembering, right before I went to college, I went and saw G Love and Special Sauce, and I
Oh,
was
I love G
obsessed.
Love. Yeah,
I know.
Garrett is a great dude. I've actually had a chance. He was the last person I interviewed before the COVID happened,
Oh
like in
wow.
person, and then I had a chance to catch up with him like a month or two ago about his new record, and he's such a great person.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, he's awesome. And I was obsessed and like my friends and I like snuck back, not even backstage, but it was like at Summerfest. We like found their bus in the parking lot and
That's awesome.
I asked him if I could play a song for him and like his crew that was there, and they let me play House of the Rising Sun for them, and then just
Wow.
kind of sitting outside of the bus, like, and then they kind of stayed in touch and they were sort of trying to help me with my music a little bit. I mean, here and there, but I was also like in college and I didn't have a ton of original songs that were like very good. So that was kind of like the first thing was that this huge artist that I admired, was beyond like great job was like actually his manager was sort of trying to help me produce some songs and
That's so
um
cool.
yeah, and then I got to open for them when they were in Fort Collins. And then I just started opening for anyone that came through. And like the people at the venue were cool to, call me up. Hey, do you want
Hmm.
to open for Oza Motley? I got to open up for
Oh, that's
them.
cool. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which what probably wasn't even a
That's
good fit.
I was
I'm
gonna
sure
say that's
Oza
kind of an
Motley's fans
interesting,
were like, what is this?
interesting pairing between you guys and you and Oz Motley, but that's awesome that you still
Yeah.
had that experience.
Yeah, but they were just, I was able to open a lot. And then I was seen by this DJ who lived in Boulder, DJ Harry, and we ended up doing a song together. called All My Life, and All My Life was like on House and the OC, and it was in a Who Killed the Electric Car. Like suddenly
Oh,
I did this
wow.
song with DJ Harry, who was with uh, String Cheese Incident. I don't know if you're
Mhm.
familiar with them, but they had a
No.
label out in Boulder. It's like kind of in the jam band world.
Okay.
I was in the kind of jam band world at that stage of my life. I had dreads briefly.
Rad.
So yeah, it was awesome. But I went to a ton of amazing shows. Like I just loved going to see live music and dancing. And
Mhm.
anyhow, I gotta focus on my story I'm telling you. Then so DJ Harry and I, he was in a kind of professional world where he had remixed String Cheese's stuff, and they were at this huge label. And so through meeting DJ Harry and doing this song together, that was like kind of the first time I was like, oh wow, like this song's like earning money. Like this is a thing. This is a job. And so when I got
Mhm.
back from Paris, and then I went to Paris, where, it was like I didn't really speak French. I lived alone. I didn't have a smartphone back then. And I think kind of just being like, if I'm brave enough and like competent enough to like navigate a foreign city as like a 20-year-old, I think between all those things, it kind of just gave me the confidence and the self-assuredness to be like, I'm going to move to LA. I'm going to do it.
Mhm. Did
So
you go to Paris to continue with college, or did you go to pursue music, or like how did you end up landing there?
it was just like a study abroad program. It
Oh,
was
okay.
through, I don't know if it was through Colorado State, but it was definitely like it was a group. But I opted out of living in the dorms. I had like my own apartment,
Oh, nice.
which wasn't great. Like it was pretty gross. But so I was a little more like independent. Like all the other kids in the program sort of seemed like they stuck together and
Mhm.
were kind of living in a dorm and speaking English. But I ended up meeting a French guy pretty early on, and I dated this French painter for the whole semester, and went to Venice and took a photography class and was learning French. And um so I had a pretty authentic
I would say, yeah.
experience.
You sure you had a way more like involved in the life scene than I'm sure those kids that went with you did, living in the dorms and probably just doing the minuscule things that they allow at that point. But to live
Yeah, and
there and
I liked
travel
those.
and
I liked that crew too. Don't get me wrong. I made some good friends, but I was kind of like independent from the group,
right.
which I think was good, because even like my friend who was in the dorms would say like, oh, like you're actually having to speak French. Like we're all just speaking English to each other,
Hmm.
So I think through meeting Arno, the French painter, and his friends, I mean, they were like not that forgiving sometimes about how terrible my French was,
Oh, really? So
yeah.
did you learn it pretty well by the time
No,
you left? Okay.
no, I could kind of, it's like if I was drinking wine and I could like I relaxed, like I could kind of understand what people were saying and like what was
Hmm.
going on. Because I think the tricky thing is like I would try to figure out what each word
Right.
means, but you're really supposed to let it like wash over you.
Yeah,
And it's
kind of
really hard to
interpret
do
the
that.
whole sentence. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
But if you had some wine, I don't know why that would be a scenario where I'm like, I kind of feel like I know what's going on. And I can kind of like talk a decent amount, at least like in
Yeah,
a
you're not as
simple way.
self-conscious of how you're gonna sound, or maybe, or
Yeah. But this was also 20 years ago. So I mean, I don't have the skills that I once had. But
sure.
yeah, anyhow, but yeah, so I think that all of those kinds of experiences as a young person that, was getting, and I was playing in Paris, there was a bunch of actual American group of people who did an open mic thing that was like English speaking at a place called Bistro des Artistes,
Hmm.
which I don't know if it's there anymore. It was like literally like a cave, underground cave. Um, and so I was able to kind of have a little bit of a musical community. And then through Arno, the painter that I had dated, met kind of artists through him, to where I, played a couple of little house concerts. And so I was definitely like able to be like, wow, like also how cool, like music is really a way into community. Like when you
Hmm.
have something to give or add, and some creative way, that was sort of the door into connection, as opposed to, oh, this American
Right.
girl who can't speak French. Suddenly it was like, oh, but she's an artist.
Mhm.
So that was good for my confidence too.
That's awesome. And then from there, you moved to Los Angeles, and
Hold on,
that's where.
Olive, come here. My dog's trying
Oh.
to tell me she wants to go outside. Olive, come here. Come here. Look, girl. You gotta wait, buddy. You gotta wait. Um, yeah, and so then I moved to LA and I went
Mhm.
to the Musicians Institute for 6 months, which is like a school down kind of
Yeah,
Hollywood and
Hollywood.
Vine
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and or Hollywood and Highland, I guess. And that was good because my mom kind of always, it was her idea really. She's like, I just need to know that you're going to a place every day because I didn't know people in LA. She
Hmm.
wanted like someone to know if I like didn't
Show
show
up.
up that
Right.
they might
That
check
makes
on
sense. There's
me.
so many, yeah,
Yeah.
some accountability.
Yeah. And I lived in West Hollywood for about 6 months. And then after school stopped, then I moved to more to Hollywood. I was in Hollywood for like 5 years in Beechwood Canyon. But I was discovered at Genghis Cohen, you
Oh, is that
know,
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, by this woman, Betsy, which led to me getting like a production deal and a record deal and my manager. And then that all kind of fell through. But my manager took me to England and then I got my Sony deal, which is how like the first two records were made.
Okay. So
So I
she
kind
discovered
of,
you what, just like at a show that you were doing, and came up after and was like, "Hey, like, I love what you're doing.
yeah,
Let's chat."
yeah.
Or
Well, it started like I wanted to perform. And so I went to Molly Malone's where I think you had to pay like $2 to play one song at an open mic. And at
oh
Molly
wow.
Malone's, there's Jay Tinsky who books a lot of these venues. I kind of cornered him awkwardly and was like, hey, like, how do I get a show? Like, how do I actually just play a concert? Like, and I
Right.
was like,
More
can
than
I sing?
one song.
I'm like, can I sing for you? Like just fearless. And he was kind of like, I guess so. So like I like sat down and like played him a song. And so he booked me at Genghis Cohen and I just started playing there. And this woman, her name is Betsy Hammer, was working at Adam Sandler's production company at
Oh
Happy
wow.
Madison.
Yeah. Wow.
And Brooks Arthur, who had produced a bunch of Adam's comedy albums and had engineered like a lot of great stuff over the years, like Hang On Sloopy, and
Okay.
worked with Janice Ian. They helped me make like this guitar vocal demo and took me around because Brooks knew all the peeps like at the
Mm-hmm.
labels. They took me around and I was signed to Maverick Records by Guy Oseary originally.
Wow.
And then I
Who's a
worked with Glenn.
huge A&R guy,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Signed a
And I'm not
bunch
in
of
touch
massive
with
artists.
I'm not in touch with any of these people anymore. But um, yeah, so he signed me and thought I had raw talent. And I worked with Glenn Ballard, who worked with Alanis Morissette, and
Mm-hmm.
Glenn and his team are absolutely lovely. But we never really like the head of Warner who owned Maverick, like all the players were changed, like they had a new president, and then they were like kind of
Sure.
gonna reabsorb Maverick and nothing was really gonna happen with me.
That's happened to so many. I've had so many conversations with artists where that
Yeah.
happened. A major gets bought, and then they dissolve one part, and this band gets the A&R leaves, and now nobody wants to acquire them because they didn't start, their career. Or it gets a little muddy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think it all worked out okay, though, still. There was some like bitter feelings, though, because basically this production deal that I had that got me my deal kind of through working with Guy. And I mean, Guy would take me around to all these like crazy famous people situations where I was just a complete weirdo who didn't know how to talk to anybody. And then, just intimidated.
Hmm, sure.
But then I had met my manager Peter, who's still my manager today, through all of this, and he helped me get released from Maverick because they might have just kind of held on to me and not do anything. So
Hmm.
he was able to get me like kind of let go. But at that point, I decided not to continue working with Betsy and Brooks.
Hmm.
And at that point, I'm like dead to Brooks. So,
Wow.
but they wanted to own like half of my music forever. Like it wasn't, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, yeah, let's do it. And they did a lot of amazing things for me. But that was sort of like a early lesson of like, because I'm such a people pleaser too, is like, well, I don't think this is what's best for me. And I tried to explain it, but we kind of ended up having this falling out.
Hmm.
And then I was independent and Peter was my manager. And I started playing music with all these musicians in my neighborhood, and we started a night called Beachwood Rockers on Wednesday nights. And really kind of, that was the first time I'd ever played with a band. And so like, while I was disappointed with like how things didn't pan out with that first deal, it was kind of cool because it was like, I was getting an education. I was living as an adult in LA. I was playing music with other people, like getting my rhythm better, and, you know, falling in love and like learning how to cook, and just kind of having this 20 something experience running around LA. But then my manager, Peter, he took me to London in 2007 or 8. And I was signed to Columbia Records, part of Sony. And then in 2009, I made my first album in Nashville. So
wow. And this most recent record, you went back to Nashville, right?
From writing and recording in Nashville and LA, kind of over the course of a year, from like November of 2020 to like late last year. I took like a year to make the record, and I wrote in chunks. But in June of last year, I had written these songs into the studio. Kennedy, who I wrote Flowers with, she's featured on Flowers, which is the first track that people can hear off the new album. And Sarah and Kate came and sang on their song, and Natalie Hemby came and sang on the song she wrote, and Maddie Diaz came and sang on the song that we wrote. And so that felt special to get to have them like included in that, because
that's cool. That's really cool. Well, going just to back up for half a second here, like when you put out the piano retrospective, and we chatted last time, was that an album that you were able to support quite a bit? Like, were you able to tour it? Because that was in May when we spoke, I believe. So then the pandemic hits. Like, where were you at when that all happened? And then how did that eventually then turn into working on this new record?
Yeah, sorry, I kind of skipped some of that.
Oh, no. I asked the question about Nashville and the new record. But I want to bridge the gap.
Does this get like edited, or do you just they get to hear all of my rambling goodness?
Everybody gets to hear your rambling goodness. Yeah, that's the best part of this. I'm gonna
fill up my coffee some more too.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, I put out that piano album, and I did tour kind of a lot. I did some US stuff. I did some Europe. And family, he actually just got married.
You froze again.
I don't know what's going on. Can you hear me?
Now I can. I heard you say that you got to play some US dates, and then it kind of froze out.
Yeah, I have full internet goodness going. So yeah, basically Joe, my British piano player, and we were able to do some US dates and some European dates around the piano retrospective. And then I was saying he's like family. He just got married in London last month. So I was able to go out for that and do some Norway shows. But yeah, so I did support the retrospective, and it also was good because it's like, you know, just the two of us would go on tour. We wouldn't take a tour manager, or, you know, it was a more efficient way to tour as well. You know,
right.
I had put out Castles, which is a full length original album, and I toured that with the band. But you know, once I did the piano retrospective, it was kind of nice to have a couple years where I was doing pretty well on the road because I didn't have so much like overhead.
Right. It was just the two of you.
Yeah, exactly. But then, you know, going into 2020, you know, I toured a ton in 2018, and 2019, I toured like crazy. And so actually going into 2020, and I was in a relationship at the time with a guy who was farming in Virginia. So I had been out in Virginia a lot, and was thinking that maybe in 2020, I would just kind of try and relax a little bit and not do as much.
Right.
Well, and then of course we know what happened.
Then you got plenty of time.
Then the pandemic hit.
Unwanted time, right?
And yeah, and I did a lot of live streams. You the live streams were able to kind of keep me going, fortunately.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very thankful to my kind of audience that they were willing to do the live stream thing
Mm-hmm.
with me every month throughout the pandemic. But what really like was the big thing that happened is that, of course, collectively, the whole world was in shock and sorrow and grief and all the emotions of like the politics that were going on, and just everything was so intense. So I came back to my farm in May of 2020. I'd been out in Virginia, and my partner and I ended up breaking up, and I had a very, very hard summer. In addition to the collective suffering, I was personally just kind of in a bad way.
Sure.
But, getting through that and taking care of myself and being around the farm and gardening and taking my dog for walks and going for swims and just kind of like letting time pass so that I could get my strength back and adjust to the ways that the world had changed and my world had changed. Excuse me. Yeah. So I was just kind of alone on my farm for months, trying to get over a broken heart and a betrayal, and couldn't even write about it because it was like, there's too much going on in the world. Like I can't even process all of this pain that's like happening everywhere right now.
Sure.
But then by November, I was like, all right, I'm ready to start writing about this. And so a lot of the earlier songs on the record that I wrote were really much kind of in that anger and sadness of the breakup. But then, cut to like months later, so the song kind of has this arc of emotion and healing, hopefully, because I didn't write all the songs at once. I wrote them as I kind of got more distance from this trigger event. So it's like there's kind of these angry, sad songs to like where by the end, it's sort of like there's like this existential hopefulness that starts to grow as I get more distance from the breakup, I think.
So it starts out in kind of that chronological order then?
No,
Track or does it jump around a bit?
Yeah, no, in terms of the track like listing, it jumps around, but I'm just sort of saying in terms of
how you were able to process and write the record.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, like I had always made records before, primarily like when I was on Sony. I mean, it was like kind of mandated, like you need to have all of your songs done and ready to go, and we all need to agree that they're good enough before you get to go into a studio to make a record. So, it's sort of like I felt like my first couple records, it was like I was really writing about the same thing in real time. Whereas this record it's like I wrote over the course of like, 8 months or something. So
you didn't have that pressure of you need to turn this in and it's got to be this level of blah, blah, blah. And
and also just where the place I was writing from was changing, because it's like, as I kind of made my peace with the breakup, I wasn't really wanting to write about that as much as I was just about life and moving forward and having hope and, so.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. With you talked about earlier writing these songs, like some of them were done over Zoom. Like, how was that? Like, was that a situation that you had worked with these people before, or was it like, hi, I'm Lissie and let's write a song together?
During COVID, I had tried to write kind of on FaceTime, and it was challenging because, if you're playing the guitar, because of the leg,
like the latency okay.
Yeah. So it's not like if you were playing the guitar that I'd be able to sing in unison with you.
Right.
It might sound to me like I am, but to you, it wouldn't sound like we were in sync,
Right.
But once I kind of figured that out, actually, I had a really great experience writing over Zoom. I actually ended up writing with Natalie. I was in Nashville, but like, that was like when everyone was getting COVID. I think there were some COVID scares. So we were supposed to meet in person, but so I was in Nashville just on my iPad, wrote with Natalie over Zoom, wrote with Morgan Negler and Maddie Diaz over Zoom, who I didn't know, but I kind of knew friends of friends. So I felt like I kind of knew them, even though I didn't really know them. and that is a manager friend of mine coordinated that for me, which was very kind of him. So yeah, so I was thinking it would be weird, but there was something about too, like on this record, I wrote with a lot more women than I, for whatever reason, ever did. It wasn't on purpose, but it's just like women are more in the mix now, which I'm loving.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Hmm.
um,
I completely agree.
I feel like I write so much faster with women. Like
Really?
when I was working on my first few records and I was in London all the time and I was only writing with men because that's who I was getting set up to write with. I
Uh-huh.
mean, it would take us days to get anything done. And, you know, I jumped on these Zoom calls and within an hour, like wrote a great song. You know,
Hmm.
it just was really interesting
That is.
way
Yeah.
to write where it's like, oh yeah, we just wrote a song in an hour, like on FaceTime.
Is it like a comfort thing or it just happened to happen that way?
I think it's just a communication thing.
Hmm.
I don't know. I felt like I was able to communicate really efficiently with the people that I was writing with, and and also they're great songwriters, so I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. But
Right.
you know, I really knew what it was I was trying to say, and we had some shared experiences that I think just made it really easy for us to collaborate on a song.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, so it was weird, but it's totally doable. And you know, there's a friend of mine that I wrote a couple other songs on the record with, and he's in Sweden. And I mean, we haven't seen each other in years, but we wrote a couple songs together as well. But those
That's
songs
cool.
took forever to get done. So I don't know why, but I'm not talking shit about men. I'm just
Because
like,
he's a
geez,
man.
like God, I was
Just
like,
kidding.
this is taking forever. Like, let's just
Uh,
be done.
that's so funny.
So yeah.
Do you feel like there is anything on the record or a moment on the record that wouldn't have happened if we weren't under the circumstances as far as like COVID and lockdowns and all that, or did that not come into it at all?
I mean, I don't even know how to answer that question. Like, I don't know if my breakup would have happened in the same way had it not been for
Hmm.
COVID.
Okay.
So, you know, I think there would have been a lot more like time and space to figure that thing out. It sort of ended this in this really abrupt, like shocking way just because of the restrictions of COVID.
Okay.
And
Sure.
unfortunately, you know, breakups or heartache really are great motivators to want to express and make
Hmm.
music. So, you know, I didn't really feel like I had a whole lot to say for the couple years I was just in a healthy relationship. So unfortunately, you know, it's like I feel like the pain has in my life driven the need to express myself.
Sure.
um you know where I'm at and this, and I'm just so grateful. I mean, I know life is always going to be full of ups and downs, but the summer of 2020 was challenging in a way that I had to like kind of fundamentally like dismantle a lifetime's worth of like shit. And
Hmm.
i you know, I felt like there were times like I barely was going to make it. Like I couldn't take care of myself some days. You know, it was really strange. And I think just it's annoying when people are like, I'm an empath, but you know, I feel like I pick up on collective psychic, like
Right.
environmental pain
Hmm.
as well as my own pain. And it was just like too much pain and too much anxiety. And it was like, that wasn't even just mine. Like I went to
Right.
going to the dentist and seeing this old woman who's like telling me, I'm so lonely, I'm losing my mind, I don't know what to do. Like I've just been stuck in the house for months and I like have no one and my husband died. And I just like am sobbing in the dentist. I could
Yeah.
cry just talking about it. Like I felt so bad for so many people. Like some people, it was great. They got to stay home and be with their families. You know, for other people, it was really, really isolating. And I'm good at being alone, but some people are not. And
Mhm.
I felt really bad for other people too, you know, not just for myself. So,
Right.
anyhow, I think, you know, had there not been this upheaval, I probably wouldn't felt as compelled to create, you know,
Hmm.
to be honest. Because I think I'm so grateful now for where I'm at in my life. Like, again, like ups and downs, but I worked through some stuff. Now today's actually like my 1 year anniversary with my partner that I'm with now, who's
Oh,
amazing.
congratulations.
Thank you.
That's so
Yeah.
cool.
And I'm really proud of this record, that I completed. And I like, even just that, summer 2020, it was like, I'm proud of myself that I have forged ahead and created so many things since then.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm sure that the pain of that time is a big part of what I created. So yeah.
Sure. Yeah. It's interesting that you brought up like, yeah, just other people like being alone. And like, I just think of that too. And it's so hard for me to fathom, like, just because I have a family and kids, and I had people around me when it was happening, at least within my household of, being stuck inside, but to be alone for months and not, I can't even imagine how that is. Or kids that are graduating high school have to do it over like a Zoom thing, like all that stuff just
Yeah.
seemed like so like heartbreaking. Or college, you're gonna go to college to play a sport or something. Now you've lost a year of that, and the whole thing was just so
Yeah. And I mean, I think
traumatic.
that there were so many people that really like it was like the worst thing ever. And then yet I know that and then not to mention like the amount of people that died,
Right, of course, but just
and
aside
then
from the direct, like the direct, impact of it all, but just
yeah, and it got to this point too. I mean, even I've witnessed like even with my parents, like who've had each other, but I think like the combination of like the news and the isolation, and then probably everybody was like eating and drinking more, and like
mhm,
kind of like there was the virus, but then there was also kind of these other things that were probably pretty unhealthy that
sure, that were
kind of were
all.
born of the isolation. And
Mhm.
then I know people who it's like COVID's the best thing that ever happened to them because of COVID. Now they can work from home and they can live wherever they want.
Right, right, right.
And I have a couple of friends who wanted to get out of the city and move but never could because of work, who now are in a position that they can live anywhere, so
Mhm.
they are kind of making like living their best lives now. So I think
Yeah.
different people got different things, but for me, I but I don't know. It's kind of in retrospect was sort of like this very humbling, beautiful, painful time that I'm really grateful for,
Mhm.
actually. Because by the winter, I was just like embracing winter. I was like ice skating and sledding, and I was wearing my snowsuit everywhere, and I was just like dedicated to like getting outside so that I could be around people
Mhm.
and seeing my friends, and we'd get bundled up because it gets freezing here, like dangerously cold in the winter.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I'm babbling on
No,
now, but
that's so cool. Like, yeah, to have this record done, I had a chance to hear it. It's amazing. I love the single Flowers. And it's coming out in September, mid-September.
yep, September 16th it'll be out. And yeah, Flowers is available now. And then on next Friday, or no, next Wednesday, we're putting out the first like proper single called Night Moves.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Coming next week. Yep, with a music video that we shot just a couple of days ago. So it's going to
Oh,
be a
really?
quick turnaround.
Where was
Yeah.
was the video shot in Iowa?
No, it was all like super duper last minute, because I think that's the totally other thing of like, in this day and age, like all the visual components that you need to have for a campaign. And
Right.
um
Everything's got to have a video and this and the social media
yeah,
direction and all the other things.
totally. And so I've been trying to be better this time around at hitting those very important things that might seem foreign to me, but are necessary. But yeah, we needed a music video, kind of like left it to the last minute. And I ended up going out to Portland
Oh, cool.
last, so Friday night. It was like a night shoot. We went out by Mount Hood. We drove an hour out of town to this cabin, and shot until like 3:30 in the morning. So
Wow.
yeah, and I haven't seen. I think today I get to see a clip of it, or I get to see a cut of it today.
Awesome. That's
Yeah,
exciting. Very, very
it
cool.
it is. I think that there's going to be actually kind of like some funny stuff in the video without trying to be funny. I think I accidentally might have been funny. So
Those are always the
we'll
best.
see.
Those are always the funniest ones.
Yeah.
That's cool. And I know you have a couple shows. I don't know if they're announced yet, but you're doing at least one in Memphis I saw in September. But Are you playing? Well, you have what show tomorrow, I think, too, right?
Yeah, so I'm actually in a little bit. I'm gonna have to go up to Minneapolis to rehearse with my bandmates, and then I'm playing in River Falls, Wisconsin tomorrow night,
Okay.
and then I'm playing in Moline, Illinois, and like outside of Madison, Wisconsin, at the end of August.
Okay.
Memphis, September 10th. But I do have I haven't announced it yet, but I have all the dates. So September, going to Norway, but then October, November, December, I'm gonna be like West Coast, East Coast, Midwest, all around the
Oh,
US. So
awesome. I hope
so
you're
those
coming to
will be announced
Nashville.
next week. We're not this first wave.
What? Okay.
Yeah, the first little wave I'm doing, I'm not coming to the Southeast. So like in Texas. So I'm gonna probably do that next spring, where I'll
Okay.
come to Atlanta and Nashville and, you know, go down to Austin and Dallas and so forth.
Okay. So you're definitely coming back, I hear.
I am, and you know, I've been talking to some of my friends there about doing this kind of like trio thing with two of my songwriter friends. So we're going to try to get together this summer, but summer's getting too busy. So I think that I will at least be back, if not to perform, to start working on some fun things with some friends of mine. So
Very exciting. Well, thank you so much, Lissie, for doing this. This has been awesome to catch up with you. And like I said, I love the record, and I appreciate you spending time today.
oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you. And I'm glad you're enjoying the record. And thank you so much.
Oh, thank
I
you.
hope
I
you
do
have a
have
good summer.
you too. I have one more quick question. You answered this before, and I want to see if maybe you'll give a similar answer. If not, maybe something totally different. Maybe if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Oh gosh. Well, you know, I was asked by someone the other day and they were like, "Do I call record labels and stuff?" And I'm like, "I don't think that you can. Like, how do you even get access to a record label?" like you have to get 1 million views on TikTok to get people.
Right.
So that's when I'm like, I don't really know how to give advice in terms of like how to make it in this day and age, because
Hmm.
such a different landscape than when I was young. It's like we moved to LA and try to get a deal, and you know, social media plays such a big role now in deciding
Oh
things.
yeah, it's crazy.
So in terms of that, I don't really quite know how things work now. But in terms of like just having a voice and a vision, I think that's the thing is you, I mean, I don't know if I should give anyone advice because I mean, I do okay, but I'm not doing that great. Uh, it's like,
I don't know about
I think,
that.
I think like I would just say it's like, you know, express yourself because you have a voice and you have something to say and you have a point of view and you have like passion and authenticity. And, you know, I think that if people want to be famous or they want to be rich or they want to, you know, do it for the wrong reasons, they still might get it. But I would think like, you know, have a point of view, have passion. Bringing it backwards.